Notre Dame trying to bounce back from a tough loss. Where have you heard that one before? The Irish returning home from Louisville to take on USC in the traditional rivalry that was one of the greatest, is one of the greatest in college football. We got Sean Moriarty here from the two Irish brothers. Head on over there, check out Sean's work. Sean and Ben getting together to talk Notre Dame football on the Two Irish Brothers channel. Do the post game here at the Voice of College Football. Sean, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, believe it or not.
Okay.
Doing good.
Just thought we would check on you. It was a bit of a different deal, though, on Saturday night compared to the Ohio State game where you pretty much blew it, in the final seconds, half a yard deal versus very competitive game, close game. And then the dam broke and things came unraveled there early fourth quarter and kind of got away from the team. And they had a last desperate attempt at a comeback, but pretty much fell apart there against Louisville. So, from your best estimation, what happened?
It's been a few days. I'm still trying to figure that out. No, you bring up a good point. I mean, despite how much it hurt, the last second loss against Ohio State, that was beautiful. That was a hard fought game, hard fought effort. And now the past 2 weeks, I don't know what I've been seeing. I mean, all I know is, you think that everybody, coaches and players alike, would have taken a hint from the Duke game and realized that, hey, target's on our back. We're not untouchable. We're not unbeatable. We better get our crap together. But I will say this though about Louisville. Losing to them doesn't make me want to, put a paper bag over my head like what happened with Marshall last year. It's not like this was a slouch of a team that we lost to. But still, and I'm not trying to bash the Cardinals, but at the same time, being an Irish fan and you look at the talent that we have, we weren't supposed to lose that game. But the thing is, that's what's going to happen when you don't come in prepared. You don't have that fire in your stomach, and it just mistake after mistake after mistake. But that's how I felt. It just, right from the get-go, it didn't look like we were very hungry. It didn't look like we were very motivated. And people have been telling me all this week, oh, well, it's because we're in a stretch of playing 4 straight primetime games. Well, you can use that argument all day long, but the primetime games are what college athletes want to play in. So that's not an excuse. What it all boils down to is we just got out-coached, we got outplayed, and we just, coaches and players alike, we didn't learn from our mistakes.
Well, I tend to buy into that narrative to a certain extent in regards to the tough stretch. It is difficult to bring the fire, the fervor to a fever pitch each and every week. It just is emotionally, mentally, in terms of focus and effort. But the effort should be there to a strong degree every week. And certainly when the game kicked off, there were only 2 consecutive games like that. So not the third and now the fourth. So that calls into question what happens in this game in regards to that mental and emotional state of mind and heart going into this one, where from a fan base perspective, it's USC and there's no reason not to get up for it, and all those things are in play. But for a 4th consecutive game to be facing a difficult challenge is a difficult task.
Yes. No, that's a very good question. What is going to happen this week? First off with USC, we've seen how their defense has been, and we know how high powered their offense is. And we've been saying this for weeks now. We should be expected to shred that USC defense apart. But I'm not trying to become the kind of Notre Dame fan that I hate and, be this, the quote realist, as they always like to call themselves, which really just means you have no faith in your team. But it's getting hard to be optimistic, because if we don't learn from our mistakes, then it could be a long night on Saturday. But at the same time, we've seen this happen before, where Notre Dame comes off a loss to an opponent that we were very sure that we were going to beat, and we get back on track, and we come to town, we bring it, and we knock off this opponent. Hence last year Clemson, because I think we were coming off the it was a loss to Stanford, and everybody in the fan base, hopes were down. Things were dragging. There wasn't much confidence there, but look what happened when we came into that game. Now, people could make their arguments about that Clemson team, but still, they were, I believe, the number 4 ranked team in the country at that time, and it gave us that boost that we needed to finish the season strong. Hence the aside from the loss to USC at the end, but we still did save the season, got to the Gator Bowl, and beat a good South Carolina team. Now, could that happen this week? Of course. But at this point in time, how I'm feeling, I'm trying to keep my optimism up. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I didn't have some concerns or maybe even some doubts, because we know how good this USC offense is. Returning Heisman Trophy winner and Caleb Williams. I mean, he tore us apart last year at the Coliseum. And I'd like to think that's the one good thing that we have going for us right now is it's in South Bend. And another factor from what I'm hearing is the weather's supposed to be pretty sloppy, which USC I know is not used to a ton.
Yeah, I have heard those factors as well. And like you, believe that they favor Notre Dame, who is a 2.5-point favorite in this game. The last I checked,
I was shocked by that, to be honest with you.
I was a little surprised. I was going to go more in the 4 to 4.5 point range on the USC side. We do a USC show on Monday night, and this is just the latest in the confirmation of fan bases are completely biased, and that's all there is to it. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. But most people try to defend their bias because if you talk to USC people, both the media folks that we have on, and then also look at the chat, they look at USC as, despite their stumbling and bumbling around against inferior competition, as one of the most talented and potentially one of the best teams in the country. And they look at Notre Dame as this kind of bumbling group of mediocrity because of what's transpired the last 3 weeks. I certainly don't look at it that way. I think there's not much separation. I think people tend to get wowed by the speed on the outside and the scoring ability, and don't take into account always the defensive aspect. And here's my quick synopsis of Notre Dame, since I have watched them the last 3 weeks pretty much every play, is that the offensive line isn't a vintage Notre Dame line. It's not at the level of Notre Dame football. And there are decent wide receivers, but they aren't great playmaking wide receivers. I think the 2 backs are exceptional. I think the quarterback's really good, as advertised, and the tight end Mitchell Evans is excellent.
Yes.
That would be my synopsis on the offense.
Well, what you said last there, that's true. Notre Dame is continuing to show that they are tight end you. It looks like we have another good one in Mitchell Evans.
You would get some arguments there, but we'll continue there.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. I'm not saying he's the next Michael Mayer. I'm just saying there's potential to be that, but that's to be determined. I'll be fair on that. But no, you're absolutely right. I as much as I love my team and I'm always going to back them, it is what it is. What you see on the field, you can't make excuses for. I mean, yeah, the offensive line is kind of what they've been like the past couple of years, and just seeing Joe Alt and Blake Fisher getting pushed around by the likes of Louisville and even against Duke, that's troubling, because these are 2 guys in particular that are supposed to be top one. I think both might be. I know Joe Alt is. He's projected to be a first-round pick. Blake Fisher, I'm not sure. But then you look at the guard spots; they're a mess. They're letting guys get through. So that's really concerning. The receivers. I really was not, put it this way, I was not expecting at this point in the season, like at least for us anywhere, we're over the halfway point. I was not expecting a tight end to be leading the receiving core in yards. So the receivers, it has been a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, I don't exactly know what the problem is. I don't know if it's because they're still kind of raw, or there's just lack of playmaking ability, lack of separation. I don't know. But I mean, the game's not played on paper, but you look at what these guys, you look at their size and whatnot on paper, the stats and all that. It's like you would think we'd have one of the best wide receiving cores in the country, and they'd show that on the field. But so far, we're not really seeing it on a consistent basis. We've seen flashes of it, but just not consistently. So it's kind of hard to argue that. And then on the defensive side of things, missed tackles, that's been the story all year, and lack of discipline. So it's just the story's been a case of inconsistency and lack of discipline.
So my contention, for the record, Sean, on the tight end would not be that Mitchell Evans could one day be as good as Michael Mayer. It's the tight end classification, but I guess that's a conversation for another day.
Well, I'm just saying we've had some good ones come out.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. The defense, for as good as I think this defense is, like, I tend to think there's really nothing wrong with this defense. Look how they played against Ohio State for the majority of the game.
Yes.
Look how they played against Duke. And really, this game against Louisville only came unraveled. And I think it was really unfortunate. If I recall, Notre Dame was down 17-13. It might have been early fourth quarter.
Yes.
And there was some kind of phantom personal foul, something on the sideline that I really couldn't pick up.
What happened was our linebacker Maris Leafau, and I did see this. He was called for a face mask, and what was ridiculous about it is the play was already downfield. We already had the stop, and that play alone kept the drive alive for the Cardinals. And he did. I can't BS my way around this. Leafau did have his hand on the guy's face mask, so it was the correct call. But that killed a lot of things right there.
Louisville scored right after that to open up a 2-score game and never looked back. After that, Jawar Jordan had a big night rushing the football, and I guess the conclusion is that the yardage is unacceptable against this level of defense, but I don't know that they didn't get worn down later in the game because of being on the field too long, and for a third consecutive game against that level of an opponent. So what's your assessment of where this defense is compared to where you thought it would be?
Well, you bring up a good point, and I didn't really think about that too much. Yeah, when your offense isn't helping you out that much, you're going to get tired on defense. So I got to give them some slack there, because you're right. When you look back all the way back to the Ohio State game, our defense has kept us in it. I mean, my biggest concern, though, is just the missed tackles are still happening. That because that could easily, we could have had some plays go big if it the missed tackles could have really cost us. Put it that way, because I'm trying to think about all of this in my mind, and it's driving me crazy. But I will say the defensive backfield has been great. The coverage has been great. I guess that's really my only beef is the missed tackles, but it's kind of hard to say that they're a crap defense when they have been keeping us in games.
I'm doing a poor job of hosting here. I'm skipping back and forth between offense and defense, and I'm not too structured, but this is the next thing that comes to mind, is that we were having a conversation on a couple different shows. One was the USC show on Monday night, and I noted that Notre Dame, to my surprise, and again, I watched the Navy game. That seems like it was 6 months ago. Yeah. And then these last 3 competitive games after the 2 layups. And Notre Dame is 17th in the nation in yards per play on offense. I think that would surprise people. That surprised the the folks I presented that to. And then, of course, there's always the question, okay, who have they played? Well, who have they played? I think they've played one of the toughest schedules in the country. Who else has played 4 quality opponents, one of which might be elite, remains to be seen, but typically is. And then the other 3 in Duke, Louisville, and NC State are good teams.
Well, I said on our show, I said before the season even started, you look at a lot of these opponents on our schedule, and you think, okay, there's not a lot of these guys that are, national championship contenders. I mean, of course, we know Ohio State, USC, Clemson, they've been in the national title hunt for the last 15 years now on a regular, consistent basis. But you look at a team like a Duke or a Louisville or an NC State, whoever, and normally they're not in. Well, a lot of the times they're not even in the hunt for their own conference championship. I mean, we know they have a history before being good, but some of these teams have slacked off a little bit, which does happen with programs. But people forget that just because a team is not ranked in the top 25 doesn't mean that they're not good. And in particular with Duke, for example, okay, yes, we all know they're primarily known for their basketball program, not so much football, but obviously football is coming alive a little bit out there. And basically our schedule, even though it's not a ranked opponent every week, it's trap game central. Okay, and I'm not trying to sound like an arrogant, typical Notre Dame fan here, but it is one of the most well-known brands. And with that being said, you have a target on your back. Everybody is going to give you their absolute best because they want to beat you. So, yeah, it's not going to be easy. A lot of these teams that you wouldn't think would be a trap game, they step it up. And we've been seeing it these past 4 weeks.
I don't know if you've had a chance to hear from coaches and players this week past the loss against Louisville, but what are they playing for now? Because I've hit you with this and other Notre Dame folks, because of the lack of a conference championship and everything headed toward the college football playoff, and that being the major incentive. What then happens when that's taken away, and it largely is at this point?
You're right. 2 losses, playoff chances are done. I mean, there's no getting around that. I mean, I could make every argument in the book of how, if we went out, this could happen or that could happen. No, just playoff chances are done. But I got a little fiery in Ben and I's preview for this game on our show, and I just and I seriously doubt anybody on the coaches or the players on Notre Dame is going to listen to what I have to say. But I've been surprised before. I found out Golden Tate watched some of my stuff back in the day.
Nice.
But what it comes down to is this. All right, we're 5-2. We have let's 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 5 games left. We got 2 big opponents on that schedule. Of course, the biggest ones being this week against USC, and then later on against Clemson. Now, Clemson, I get it. They're down a little bit. They're down, but we got to go play them in Death Valley, which is going to be a huge challenge in itself. And then let's see, I think Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, and then we finish out the year against Stanford. So what I say is this. This is what the incentive should be. It sucks that the playoffs are out, but do you want to just lay down, call it quits? Or do you want to try to win 10 games and get yourself to an NY6 bowl game? Now, I know it sucks that national championship's not going to happen, but you can still play in a major bowl game. And as any of us Notre Dame fans know, the last, it's been called a bunch of stuff since then, the BCS, the NY6, I think back in the day it was called the Bowl Game Coalition or something like that.
The Bowl Alliance, the Coalition. Yes, it's had all sorts of versions.
Well, I just call them major bowls. The 6 major bowl games that we all know. We haven't won one since the '94 Cotton Bowl. All right. I was 8 years old. It's been a long time. It's time to remedy that and change it. Let's get, well, I mean, obviously, I think our only three options are the Fiesta Peach. Orange might be a little tricky. But anyway, because correct me if I'm wrong, but the rose and the sugar are the semis this year, correct?
I don't even know. One of the reasons I don't know is because I think it's. I will clean up my attacks here a little bit. I don't think it's real bright or smart to label playoff games as bowl games. To me, they cease to be bowl games when they're playoff games. It's just a
Okay.
playoff game. I don't care where it is that you're going to call it the Rose Bowl. It's like the Rose Bowl game that you played against Alabama in 2020. Okay, it's the Rose Bowl, but it's a playoff and it's in Dallas. So at
Yeah.
what point does this continue to be the Rose Bowl just because we put a rose on the 50-yard line and call it the Rose Bowl? But
Well,
anyway,
well,
that's
to
my
add
own
on to that,
soapbox.
that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It's a little more than just a bowl game. I get where you're coming from. But on a side note, you could always make the rose yellow. The yellow rose of Texas. That's where it would make sense.
They did not do that though.
No, they didn't. They didn't. They use the brand. I get that, but anyway, with the bowl games that we have an option to go to, if we were to win out, make a statement. Like I said, I think it's assuming that it is the rose and the sugar that are the semis. It leaves the Fiesta, the peach, the cotton, and the orange. So if we make one, let's remedy that. That should be our goal right now. Win a major bowl game and break that streak and get a respectful bowl game plaque in the trophy room. Because I think that would be a great start for this program. If we can't win a national championship, go for the next best thing.
I'm not suggesting that this should be a mindset at this point, but at what point do you start to question Marcus Freeman being the right guy for the job?
My personal opinion, and I know there's a lot of other opinions out there that would say otherwise, but my opinion has always been every head coach deserves at least 3 years. I mean, and I know everybody forms their own destiny. This was a trend there for a while in Notre Dame's history, but it seemed like every coach was winning a national championship in their third season. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Marcus Freeman, but I feel that every head coach deserves 3 full seasons, and by the start of that fourth season, or even during the third season, if we're not seeing any improvement, like true improvement, then you got to put him on the hot seat.
Okay. Got Sean Moriarty here from the Two Irish Brothers. You can catch their work, both Sean and Ben, right here on YouTube. And Sean and Ben get together to provide Notre Dame post-game right here at the Voice of College Football. So we appreciate that. And of course, regardless of the records, and I'm a sucker for tradition and a purist at heart, Notre Dame USC always means something to me. It's the greatest cross-sectional rivalry in college football, bar none, not even close or debatable in my book. All right, Sean, where does USC rank in your hatred scale?
Well, I know there's been a lot of opponents that were rivals that we don't play on a regular basis anymore. Like, I know we played Purdue in 2021, but we haven't we used to play Michigan all the time, Purdue all the time, Michigan State all the time. USC, of course, is a yearly thing. And then, of course, you got Navy. Boston College, I think that's kind of faded away a little bit. I would say, and you might think I'm crazy for saying this, I would say USC would be my third hated team. Because and believe it or not, for other reasons that I'm not going to get into here, and it's kind of a long story anyway, Michigan State is my most hated team. Michigan probably number 2. And I say Michigan's number 2 because I have met a lot of cool Michigan fans that are good people. And we just, they're not, nasty or anything like that. Same with USC. They're number 3. So, yeah, I got to be honest. That's where I have them.
Okay.
Most people would probably think I'm crazy, but
Well, there is no right or wrong answer. I was just curious because there are, of course, a number of rivalries on Notre Dame's list, many of which you just outlined
yeah.
are on standby at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think, even though it's not a rivalry, that Ohio State might be on some Notre Dame fans' lists.
I just still can't believe that Notre Dame and Ohio State have only played, including a few weeks ago, only 7 times in the entire history of college football.
Yes.
Indiana and Ohio are right next door to one another. How do you only play 7 times?
8 to be a stickler about the
Okay,
exact
8.
numbers, but there we go. Yeah.
Okay, I thought there was a bowl game I was missing.
Yeah, 2 Fiestas and then 2 home and homes.
That's right. That's right. Okay, I was off by a game. Forgive me.
That's why I tried to gently correct you on that one. But very good.
8 times in however long they've been playing college football, since like the 1870s or something like that. Yeah, 150 years. How do you only play 8 times?
Yeah. I would agree. I think college football scheduling needs a lot of work, but that's another topic for another time. Sean Moriarty, the 2 Irish brothers. Again, it's our post-game hosts right here at the Voice of College Football for Notre Dame football, and check out their regular work there on the channel. Sean, we appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Mark. And I will actually be at Notre Dame USC this week, and definitely it sounds like I'm going to have to bring out the ponchos for sure. It's gonna be a wet one.